Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of PHT TV. This week is going to be somewhat similar to last week, as the 8000s and the 6000s share more similarities really than they do differences. When purchasing speakers though, there are many factors that come into play. The room size, placement, power handling, physical speaker size, and so forth. So if you're watching this, you've likely been considering the RP-8000s, and you want to see what they look like coming out of the box. That said, you may have also considered the 6000s a step down, or the RS7s a big step up. So we're going to crack these guys open, we're going to put them side by side with the RP-6000s and give you a compare and tell you some of the differences. And then following that, we're actually going to unbox the RF7s, take those apart, show you the components side by side there as well, and then we'll put them all back together and we will show you the 8000s next to the RF7s as well. So we've got a lot of compares coming up, we've got a lot of unboxings coming up, and hopefully if you guys are in the market, we can help you kind of make your decision of what's best for you. That said, if you have not already, click that subscribe button below and click the little bell next to it to enable notifications. Not only will this let you know as soon as new videos release, but it will also be the first step to put you in the running for many of our giveaways and our contests that we have here on PHT TV. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen the 5s unboxing video, make sure you check it out. We'll be giving away a pair of the 5s, and that episode will tell you how to enter the contests. Before we go any further though, let's open this box and see what's inside. And the first thing we see when we open up the box is the same thing as in the 6000s. We have a little baggie with our Klipsch Reference Premier User Manual. So what we're looking at here is the user manual for the entire Reference Premier line. So it is no surprise that it is the exact same thing as we found in the 6000s. I'm going to go ahead and put this back. Next, you are going to have a Klipsch warranty information sheet. And finally, the important safety instructions, which, as discovered last week, read the instructions, keep these instructions, heed all warnings. Basically, it's how to not ruin your product. Now, unlike the Heritage line, the Reference Premier line is not packed upside down. So this is actually the top right here. So I'm going to flip it forward, take off the box, then flip it back again. Always having a hand on the speaker itself so it does not drop. Here we have the RP-8000F. Absolutely gorgeous speaker. They come available in ebony as well as the walnut finish that you see here. The veneer is notable on these as it is a furniture grade veneer, and it does have that waterfall effect as in a lot of the higher end speakers where it goes from top to bottom then all the way back down to the bottom again. It's really going to be gorgeous. It's going to fit in really nicely with your home decor. Now, as we mentioned last week, a really big consideration when purchasing floor standing speakers and comparing them with each other tends to be the size and the can I fit this in my room aspect, or is this going to be giant and obnoxious in my room aspect. Just to get that out of the way, these are going to be 43.12 tall, 10.9 inches wide, and 17.56 inches deep. If you were to drop down to the RP-6000s, those are 39.62 by 9.35 by 17.02 inches deep. And lastly, if you were to step up to the RF7s, those are 49 inches tall by 13.875 by 17.875 deep. Now, onto appearance, they are essentially the big brother of the 6000s. So all of the items that I mentioned last week will ring true here as well. They have the new riser base, which sets them apart from the plinth of the previous generation, and other accents that make it more aesthetically pleasing and a little bit more elegant, such as the accents around the drivers and in the horn as well. They do have the removable grille, which is magnetic, so it makes it really easy to take off and put back on. Now, as for the drive components, they are going to feature an 8-inch spun copper cerametallic woofer, and a 1-inch titanium vented tweeter, which is new to this generation of speaker, and it is the same used in the 8000s as well as the 6000s. I talked about this last week, but if you missed it, some have said that the vented tweeter is a gimmick. It doesn't affect the performance. It's not all it's cracked up to be, but typically this is due to a lack of understanding on the vented tweeter system and how it works. In simple terms, it basically acts like a port and it expands the range of the tweeter, allowing you to drop the crossover point, lowering intermodulation distortion in the speaker as a whole. The last spec that I'm going to go over today, it's not really a spec but a feature, is that it is a bass reflex cabinet with a rear firing Tractrix port. That's pretty much it for the specs, but we aren't quite done yet. Like I said last week, we want to dive a little bit deeper into each component this season, and as such, I'm actually going to pull these guys apart as well. Partly to show you how to remove and replace components, should it ever be needed, but also to show you the side of these units that typically goes unseen. Now, I did pull the tweeter in the 6000s, but the horn is a little bit different, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that as well in this unit. I'm going to go grab some tools, and we will move camera 2 closer so that you guys can get a closer look at this as I pull it apart. All right, so as I mentioned last week, it is super simple to remove these components. With the horn, you just want to get a little bit of edge behind this, and you can see it comes out super easily. That is done. Next, what you're going to want to do is remove these 8 screws, and that is going to be a number 3 hex driver. Now, it may be easier for you guys to lay the speaker on its back, but if I did that, then you probably couldn't see it through the camera. So that's why I have it upright. It's a lot less likely that it would fall out if you did it that way, but again, as with last week, what you want to do with these little locking mechanisms here is you actually push in the inside and then pull them right out. Push in, then pull them right out. If you have trouble doing that with your fingers, you can also use a pair of needle nose pliers. And there you have your horn and driver assembly out. Now, if you're keeping the horn and you just ended up needing to replace the tweeter or diaphragm assembly, you'd also want to take off these 4 Phillips screwdriver heads as well. So I'm going to go grab a Phillips head screwdriver and we can do that also. And there we have it. All right, so now as far as this goes, the woofer can be a little bit more intimidating than the tweeter because they do hide the screws and you do end up having to pry off this beauty ring here in order to get to the back of the screws. That said, while it is a little bit more seemingly intimidating, it is not that difficult. The key thing that you want to consider is to use an object to pry that will not damage this outer side here. In a pinch, you could almost just grab a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and put a layer of electrical tape on it to protect it from scratching. So once you've found your item that you're going to pry with, you just start working your way around the edge here until you get a nice little grip. Once you get it far enough off to where you pop part of it off, then you're going to want to slowly pinch these off. Some of them will be a little bit more difficult than others, but you want to work your way around like this in order to get each and every one. You don't want to just kind of try and rip straight off, or else you might break the beauty ring, or you might break these tabs that are on the back side, and you don't want to do that because you want to be able to reuse this. Pop it off to the side. Next, you'll grab your number 3 hex again. All right, so in removing these drivers, it has a tendency to pop off as you're removing it. So what I recommend is typically kind of counterintuitive. You're going to want to start with the top because what's going to happen is it's going to pop off this way. So you want to leave at least one in the bottom as you're going around here. Because the bottom has a tendency to want to pop out first, that's where you're going to want to leave the screw. But as I said before, typically you guys are going to be doing this while it's on its back, so that may not make a big difference. Now, finally, what you're going to want to do next is start to pull it out forward, but don't let it go too far, because you do have to disconnect these prior to removing it any further. These are locking ones, so what you want to do is get around this side and pinch, and if you can get it just right with your nails, you should be able to release that lock. If not, you can use a needle nose pliers as well, but you should just be able to get it by using your nails. And there you go. I'm gonna set it off to the side here. One other thing I want to show you is the insulation inside here. So this is another aspect of a speaker that you don't typically get to see. That goes all the way from top to bottom. That does help as well. And now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to place all these drive components on the table next to the RP-8000s so that you can see them side by side. Here are our tweeters side by side, and then here are our horns side by side. So while the tweeters are the same, the horns are different here. The woofers, you can really see how vast the difference is. Not only in the diameter, but if you turn them sideways, I'll pull off these beauty rings here. If you turn them sideways, you can see how much of a difference there is in that magnet and the basket as well. Significantly larger all the way around. Now, all of that noted, I'm sure you guys are more interested in how they sound more than anything else. That said, we'll be putting them side by side against the 6000s next week to see how they stack up. After that, we're going to unbox some RF7s and compare those as well. Make sure you're subscribed to get a notification when these next videos drop, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again next week for another episode of PHT TV. Next, you'll grab your number 3 hex again. If you haven't lost it already, like I have. All right, it's gone forever. Show's over. This black carpet makes things difficult. La 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 la. Where did I put it? It was in the carpet all along.